Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Odd Sports Topics podcast. I am Michael Rachel, as always, joined by PJ Ellis and Matt Costa. Today, we've got a pretty cool guest, guys. It's the owner and president of Lammi Sports Management and the current executive director of the Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame as well, Bryan Lammi. Before I get to you guys, I just want to give a quick intro into Bryan himself and the company. The company is located here in Milwaukee, long way for you guys from St. Louis, but here I am in Milwaukee. It's a sports marketing firm, and they go by TEAM, team, the acronym, talent, events, advising, and media. And it kind of wraps up all that they do. The talent, they are kind of like a middleman matchmaker kind of thing with companies and athletes, and they match them so that they have these sponsorships and they fit well with that. They host events such as the Green and Gold charity softball game, as we talk a little bit about Coach Rob Mendez later. He was at that event. They do a bunch of those events. They do advising work as well. They do media, which is interesting as well. They have produced television, radio, online, and social media content surrounding top teams and athletes in every region of the United States and in every major sport. In 2015, Lammi Sports Management produced nearly 100 hours of original programming, syndicated over 1,000 years of sports media. I did not come up with that. That is directly from their website, lammisports.com. And one of those TV productions that they've done is with Fox 6, which is a local station in Milwaukee. They did Inside the Huddle, and they still do it with Packers players. It's really cool. So they do those 4 different things. And as you guys can see on your screen right now, it is the clients that Bryan Lammi and Lammi Sports Management have had over the years. You can check them all out at lammisports.com/clients. But I'm going to scroll down and just go over a few ones here. Donald Driver, his partner right there. Clay Matthews, Jordy Nelson, other former Packers legends. Aaron Jones, current coach Rob Mendez. We go into detail about him in our interview. Bobby Blair's down here. There's a former Olympic speed skater, home of Milwaukee. Brian Urlacher, one of Matt's favorite players, a Chicago Bears legend. One of our guests is actually on here down here. Tom Pippins, a good friend of mine and sports personality. Frank Caliendo was up here. Pat McAfee was up here as well. Chris Middleton up here as well, current Milwaukee Buck. It's just an insane list of people. PJ's hero growing up, Champ Bailey's on here. Eric Dickerson, Hall of Famer in the NFL. It is just an insane list of people. You should go check it out at lammisports.com/clients to look at all of them. Matt, I want to come to you about one thing that you took away from the interview.
Probably the biggest thing I took away from the interview. So we are all sports management students or sports business management students. Bryan is obviously he's a professional in the sports business industry, and some of the advice that he gives for sports business students or just anyone really that is looking to get into the sports industry, it's really important. It's some stuff that I'm definitely going to apply to my own life and to my own professional development. And if you're a sports business student, definitely listen to him because he's got a lot of good things to say about that.
Love it. PJ, real quick, give us our socials, and then if you want to add anything onto that, go for it.
Yeah, guys, make sure you're following us on social media. We did our giveaway concluded for the Yadier signed pennant. Congratulations to Corey Riggs on that. We will be doing more giveaways, so make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then subscribe to our YouTube as well. We will have more giveaways coming, so make sure you're following us so you can make sure you see that when it goes live. You can participate and hopefully get something cool from us. But yeah, the interview was great. For the St. Louis people, we have a few St. Louis connections. His client is Chase Daniel,
There you go.
the St. Louis connection there. So like always, it's a great interview. Like Matt said down there, if you're a sport business major, if you have any interest in the world of sports, like it's a great way. I think many people, when they think of a job in professional sports, they think of working for a professional sports franchise, which is obviously a great route to go. But this is just a new side, a different side that maybe you haven't thought about before if you're interested in sports, which is an awesome route. And he lists some really cool stories on how he got there and how he got started up and where he's at today. It's just really cool to hear how it started and where it's at now.
That's true. And I'm just going to add one little thing here before we get into the interview for you guys. My favorite part was when he was talking about Coach Rob Mendez. It was super cool that they're able to partner up with him. He was the winner of the Jimmy V Perseverance Award, and this week is actually V week, so perfect time to have Bryan on our show. But Coach Mendez, he was born without arms and legs, which you would think is just makes for an impossible life. But Coach Mendez, He's very inspirational. He's the head coach of a high school team. He draws plays with his mouth because obviously he can't with his arms or legs. So it's remarkable. It's a story that you guys should check out. We'll throw the link in the description to both his speech at the SBs and then also an SC featured that he had. It's a great interview. I want to thank Bryan for coming on our show. And without further ado, here is our interview with the owner and president of Lammi Sports Management, Bryan Lammi. We now welcome on to the Odd Sports Topics podcast, the owner and president of Lammi Sports Management and the current executive director of the Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame, Bryan Lammi. Bryan, thank you so much for being on today.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. Looking forward to this.
Perfect. Hey, Bryan, we're going to give everybody a quick background real quick. You founded Lammi Sports Management in 2001. What was your vision for the company and why did you decide to go that route?
You know, my vision was to originally do sports marketing talent for endorsements better than anybody. I started off in 2001, 4 days after 9/11, when people understandably didn't want to talk about sports. And I was just working out of my 1-bedroom apartment at Yankee Hill, wondering what the heck I just did with my life. And my goal was just to provide awesome service for athletes to do endorsements and marketing work off the field. And I was just kind of fortunate because at my previous gig, we were doing player marketing and not a lot of companies were back then. Even some of the biggest agencies in the country didn't necessarily have a separate marketing arm back then. So we kind of thought we had a point of differentiation to really represent athletes and find them great deals. And now that we've grown into talent and events and advertising and media, that's expanded a little bit, but at our core is still hopefully doing a great job by the athletes that we represent.
How do you decide which athletes get paired with what products? And are companies specific in who they want endorsing their product, or is it your job to kind of pair the right athlete with the right product?
I think it happens a couple of ways, Matt, but the goal is to find an authentic connection with a brand or a company that they truly believe in. So we're trying to find authentic connections and powerfully told stories, regardless of what the platform is or how those stories are being told. So if it's a brand or an organization that ties in, like Donald Driver with Goodwill, having grown up homeless is very different than Jordy Nelson with some of his farm implement endorsements. And that's different than Leighton Vander Esch and some hunting endorsements that he has. So I think you want to find these authentic connections that hopefully can elevate both brands, elevate the corporate brand, but to further the story of the player that we're representing as well.
I'm a huge Bears fan, so I have to ask, you represented Brian Urlacher. How did the hair locker connection, how did that happen? Because he's a bald guy. He was a bald guy at least. Now he's got hair. I'm just wondering, how did you get that one set up?
You know, we honestly didn't. So Brian Urlacher and a number of other guys on our website are guys that we've worked with. So
Okay.
We've done a couple of deals with Brian Urlacher and have always enjoyed connecting with him. We've done something with Molson Coors, and I was actually on a deal with him recently that we didn't set up, but Jordy Nelson and him were together for a USAA insurance program, and Bryan is always great. How he decided he was ready for hair and to kind of change that iconic look, I don't know. But I will say he's always been fantastic when I've interacted with him. And I see those billboards like everybody else on the freeway in Chicago, thinking what a change it's been for him in the hairstyle department.
Were you working with Brian when he was fined $100,000 at the Super Bowl for wearing that vitamin water hat?
I was not, but I've heard kind of secondhand that in that case, the brand felt like they were getting their money's worth even after having paid the fine, because it obviously ended up being such a huge story. Whether or not that's true, I have no idea.
Yeah, the three of us are sports management or sports business majors, so we've all heard that stories in our classes and how that was a tactic by Vitamin Water. So I was texting with one of your employees last night and today, Brian Urso. I went to high school with him, and he said he likes when you tell stories from the 2000s. And he brought up the point of how players didn't really have their own personal brand like they do today with social media and stuff like that. So obviously you have a countless number of clients right now. But do you have clients that are not necessarily interested because they have their own social media brand, or has social media allowed you to say, hey, you can sponsor with this company, all you have to do is post it on your social media?
Yeah, it definitely has changed. Again, I go back to, I think it's important to learn the examples of all of the different mediums. And Bryan Ursoy is really good at social media and kind of connecting and looking at deals in ways that I may not, which I think is great to get those different perspectives. But at the same time, I think we still want to find those authentic connections that I talked about earlier. And I do think there's more opportunities from a social media perspective to align brands. But I'm also a big believer, once you're connected with that brand, that connection is always there. So we want to be very thoughtful about not just doing the social media post, what's kind of that larger engagement and that more kind of interactive, organic way to grow the relationship above and beyond just that one social post. I know that opinion isn't shared by everybody in the industry, but that still is my preference, that the social campaign can be a part of the overall relationship and not just, here's $1,000 to do the one-time post and we'll never talk to you again. Ideally for us, we're trying to, grow that relationship if we can.
Bryan, you spoke earlier about how certain players and certain clients just have a fit with a brand, such as Donald Driver and Goodwill. Say that you see a brand that you think would be the perfect fit for an athlete, and you pitch it to the athlete, and the athlete just doesn't have any connection to it. How much do you push? How much is it of a, okay, we're going to walk away from it? How do you approach that situation if an athlete doesn't necessarily see eye to eye with you with something you think would be absolutely great for them?
PJ, we may slightly encourage, but we're not going to, push something that doesn't feel right to them. I think if it's not right for a corporate client or it's not right for, the athlete, then it's not worth forcing. And there's so many other opportunities that you can pursue. I think, though I will say what happens more often is we like the idea, the athlete loves the idea, and we just can't get the brand to respond. It either doesn't fit or we're just not finding the right person at the right time. But that at times can be a challenge. You just get told no a whole lot. You just have to get used to rejection.
So here at Odd Sports Topics, Bryan, we write articles on the odd things of sports, but we also do this podcast. Last week, we talked to Tom Pippins about Leroy Butler and creating the Lambeau Leap and its legacy in Green Bay. What is one thing in your career that's been super odd to you that you've noticed, or just something in sports that you've noticed that's odd?
I don't know if this is completely odd, but I think what COVID has shown us is that there's always an amazing appetite for sports, and that sports can continue to be a way to inspire us and kind of uplift us during a challenging time. But now more and more, you're finding that sports can actually be the leader for having social conversations and making social change. I think what's different, at least, and maybe it's odd to me because I'm older than all of you young studs, is I don't know if that was always as true 20 years ago. I think you were looking for, a government or, newspapers or different media groups to kind of set different agendas. And now you're seeing athletes being able to have such a powerful platform directly. So I don't think that's odd necessarily, but I think it's been a huge change and a positive change that platform exists and that athletes are willing to take advantage and kind of assume the responsibility for that opportunity.
Speaking on COVID real quick, obviously it's very odd in every sense of it. How has that affected the deals that are being made, and how do has the deals that these brands approach you with been different since the start of this? Is it changed anything for you business wise?
Yeah, good question. It definitely has. We've done more virtual speaking engagements in the last 6 months than any other time in my career combined. So there's been some new opportunities there. There's certainly been some other challenges with a lot of things being canceled or not being able to take place. But I think, like a lot of things in life, necessity is the mother of all invention. I think people are getting more creative. They're trying to figure out how to tell compelling stories in different ways. And in some cases with the virtual speaking engagements, so when we've had Donald Driver speak to a Gillette sales team, or when we've had Coach Rob Mendez inspire a team from California, inspiring a sales team for Dell in Austin, Texas, you kind of think maybe we didn't need those guys to show up for all of those opportunities. Because if you have a sales force across the country and you have talent in a different part of the country, why not provide a really compelling video experience that can really be successful? And maybe realizing some of the ways we used to do things don't have to be the way we're doing things moving forward. So I'm a big lifelong learner. You have to get smarter, adjust to the new way of doing things. And I think that provides some exciting opportunities amidst the substantial challenges here.
And Bryan, you don't focus just on athletes necessarily, but other people in the sports industry, as Matt mentioned. Todd Pippins is one of your clients as well. But one person that I'd like you to speak on is Coach Rob Mendez. And just for a background for our viewers that don't know him, is Coach Mendez, he was born without arms and legs and is the head coach of a high school football team. You hosted an event of the Green and Gold charity softball game, and I saw pictures of Coach Mendez signing autographs with his mouth and a pen. It's truly inspirational, and he is an inspirational person. And this week is actually V Week. And in 2019, Coach Mendez was the recipient of the Jimmy V Perseverance Award at last year's ESPYs, which we'll show a clip of for people.
I also want to thank the game of football for all of it's given me, for allowing me to be a part of a team. It's honestly been hard for me to fathom receiving this award, to be recognized alongside heroes of mine like Coach Valvano, Stuart Scott, Jim Kelly, and so many others. But the reality is I am here. And if there's any message I want to give you guys tonight, it's to look at me and see how much passion I put into coaching and how far it's gotten me. When you dedicate yourself to something and open your mind to different possibilities and focus on what you can do instead of what you can't do, you really can go places in this world. Realizing I couldn't play football, but I could coach football. That was the way for me to never give up, from the words of Jimmy V. That was my way of focusing on what I can do. Let me tell you, best part of coaching for me is seeing someone's potential and making them realize what's possible. So for anyone out there not sure if they can do something, it could be in sports, it could be in your job, it can be in your life. Whatever it is, I'm here to tell you that you can do it. You've got to be passionate. You've got to work at it, but it can happen. And I'm not done yet. I've made it this far, and who says I can't go further? That's my message tonight. Who says I can't? Nobody. Yeah!
There was one quote from him that really stuck out to me. He said, when you dedicate yourself to something and open your mind to different possibilities and focus on what you can do instead of what you can't do, you really can go places in this world. Could you talk to us a little bit about Coach Rob Mendez and one thing you have learned or taken away from him with your time with him?
Well, Michael, first, great research. I think all of you guys clearly have done your research here, so I appreciate that. Great job. With Coach Rob, there's so many things, but I guess one of the big things is just that he puts everybody's life in perspective really quickly. This is a guy who's had a lot of challenges growing up, continues to have a lot of challenges, and you realize that one of the things that we're all guilty of is we ultimately take things for granted. And I think Coach Rob looks at every day as a blessing. He's a positive guy. I mean, he's human, so of course he has some good days and bad days like everybody else, but his whole mantra of who says I can't and now who says we can't, I think is just very inspirational for people all across the country. And when he's spoken to Dell or the US Postal Service or Pilgrim's Chicken, Microsoft, so many different companies, his story of overcoming obstacles, never taking no for an answer, and finding a way to overcome the odds, but then also inspire other people is just kind of this universal theme that I think resonates with so many different audiences. And it certainly resonates with me individually. He definitely is a life-changing human being. I'll also say we've been at the Super Bowl when David Ortiz will leave Media Row to come over and talk to Coach Rob. And David Ortiz talked about when he got shot and he's in the hospital, he saw Coach Rob's story. He's like, that inspired me. Like, all right, I'm shot, but I need to get better. Look at what this guy is doing. I've seen Adrian Peterson jump out of a car at the ESPYs that had just stopped and like make a beeline to Coach Rob and give him a hug, and they had never met before. Like there's just these people from all walks of life. Aaron Rodgers giving him time when Coach Rob came and spoke to the Packers organization. I think it's hard not to be inspired by Coach Rob and be moved by his story.
And how did you go about getting into contact with Coach Rob? Because obviously, was it before the Jimmy V Award? Because I'm assuming after that Jimmy V Award, everybody wanted, Coach Rob to come talk to them and inspire either their teams or companies. How were you able to contact these athletes so easily?
Usually it's not easy. And in this case, I don't know if it was easy, but all credit to my partner, Donald Driver. Donald Driver saw his story. Donald's a longtime client and now a business partner. And he said, hey, I'm really moved by Coach Rob's story. Let's have him in for our Perseverance Award as part of Donald's Driven to Achieve Awards that we put on in Wisconsin. Donald will raise about $800,000 in a night at a charitable dinner. Coach Rob showed up and accepted that award. We've had Michael Strahan MC, Anthony Anderson from Blackish. We've had Gladys Knight, Gavin DeGraw perform. We've had JJ Watt in attendance. And 7 years later, people say one of the most inspiring moments was having Coach Rob come out on stage and accept the Perseverance Award. And that's still something that people are inspired by. So we got to know Coach Rob that weekend. He said, hey, can you help me out with some things? We said, sure, we'll just do that to do it. And he called me like half a week later and said, some movie producers want to come to California, make a movie out of my life. Will you fly in and help me? I was on spring break with my family in Florida, got back, just got on another plane in Wisconsin and flew to California to meet with them. The movie deal didn't actually end up happening, but now Coach Rob's book is coming out this fall. And he obviously, has had so many great opportunities from national deals with the NFL and Samsung and being in the Google's year in search video that's been seen 153 million times and counting. So it's been a fortunate situation for us to represent him. He definitely, again, changes lives, including ours.
I think that 153 million will be just over the views we'll get for this podcast, but who knows?
Pretty similar. Yeah, it'll be similar.
Switching gears a little bit here, Bryan. We were, like Michael said earlier, we were all sport management, sport business majors at our respective colleges. I want to speak on college sports a little bit. NCAA announced last April that they support a rule change allowing college athletes to be paid off their likeness and image, which is a change, obviously, and kind of goes along the debate of should college athletes be paid. So we're just wondering, with that rule change set to be in effect at some point when the details get finalized, how will that affect your business and just college sports landscape, period?
Well, first for the college landscape period, I think it's going to allow them to earn income as they should for, marketing and doing things off the field. I think if any other, student has a great sports marketing idea or any other business idea, they're able to monetize that and not lose other benefits of, attending the university. So I think it's absolutely past time. Now I'm a talent first guy, so I always appreciate, that talent should be treated fairly. But I think they do deserve to be paid for, what they're doing off the field. As it will impact our business, historically, we don't recruit even guys coming out of college. But now that we're going to have opportunities and potentially relationships, my first two clients, Brad Johnson, his son is now technically one of the starting quarterbacks at LSU right now due to injury. Donald Driver's son, Christian Driver, is being recruited by every college in the country. So whether or not we'll ever work with those guys, I have no idea. But it is amazing that now we're looking at some of these sons that I remember as babies now being college athletes. And there may be some situations where we start looking at those opportunities to market college players. And I don't think the world is going to end. I think it will fit into, people will get used to what the rules are. And I think life is going to go on just fine. I really do.
Bryan, your list of clients is large and impressive, and it's full of players from different leagues and teams all across the country. So assuming you're a Packers fan since you grew up in Wisconsin, how do you root or watch any sort of game between the Packers and your other clients like Cam Jordan with the Saints? Do you just cheer for maybe Aaron Jones gets a handoff and Cam Jordan's the only person on the other team that can tackle him, or what do you do?
It is like cheering for fantasy football after a while. I think you're cheering, in my case, I am cheering more for individuals. I think I become pretty neutral after a while. I remember one of my coworkers, Dan Carey, was with us for 15 years. We were in Brad Johnson's box. Brad Johnson now playing for the Dallas Cowboys. Donald Driver makes a long catch over the middle, gets tackled, and then this box full of Dallas Cowboys fans, Dan just screams, "Yes!" And everybody turns around. You know, it's like that awkward kind of moment. So I think you have to be cautious, but yeah, I'm cheering for guys individually. You know, I may be a Tampa Bay fan one week, but a Cowboy fan the next week, depending on who's playing who. So that definitely shifts your allegiances a fair amount. So I am a Packers fan, but Matt, we produced a Chicago Bears show for 12 years. So I always wanted the Bears to be the second best team in the NFL behind the Packers. Business first.
We were joking that we need to get you the red zone of your clients instead of like red zone when teams are, you know, we need to get you a Scott Hansen that just kind of goes from game to game when your clients are about to score and stuff like that. I don't know how that would work, but we got to make that happen.
Idea. That is a worthwhile investment, my friend. Please spend lots of time on that.
Another thing that you're a part of, as I mentioned when introducing you here, is you're the executive director of the Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame, which I saw is that was actually the first of its kind of a state to have a Hall of Fame. Wisconsin was the first one created in America. What is the process of you having such a big role of adding athletes to the Hall of Fame? And can you give us any leaks as to what athletes might be on the horizon for the Hall of Fame next year?
The process is a pretty transparent one that anybody can go on and nominate people at our website, wihalloffame.com. And then we'll consider them. And we have a board that votes on the nominees. That includes Barry Alvarez, Bud Selig, different community leaders, people affiliated with the Packers, Brewers, Bucks. So we try our best to get it right. I didn't realize what I signed up for because people get really, really passionate about who is and isn't in the Hall of Fame. So you realize that even if you think you got it right, there's always bound to be a few people that aren't happy with the final determinations, but we take it serious. We want to get it right. And we think it's a remarkable way to not only honor these incredible people that have done great things in Wisconsin, but also to really be laser focused on making youth sports better in Wisconsin. So there's kind of a why, in addition to just preserving the history of these Hall of Famers. And pretty remarkable that when you look at the state of Wisconsin, you have people like Hank Aaron, Vince Lombardi, Bob Uecker, Barry Alvarez, Al McGuire, so many of the best across all sports, Bonnie Blair on the Olympic side. It's a very challenging Hall of Fame to get into. We've been around longer than the Pro Football Hall of Fame or the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, but we have less people in our Hall of Fame than the Green Bay Packers do in their Hall of Fame, and they're covering one sport. So usually when people are not happy about somebody not being in, I just remind them, this really is the best of the best. We're trying to get in as many qualified candidates as we can, but it can be a challenge. But that's a good problem to have, that there's so many qualified candidates. And as far as any early peaks for next year, no, can't help you there.
What about last year? Who were the nominees last year? Do you remember?
So the inductees were Brett Favre and Jordy Nelson. Really honored to be able to have those two guys go in. But just a few of the other really qualified candidates, Steve Stricker, Tony Romo, Joe Thomas. We've continued to look at NASCAR drivers, tennis players, golfers. That's where it gets to be a little bit challenging when you're comparing against multiple sports, and how do different people weight those values versus other people makes it kind of a challenge, but also something that Sports Talk Radio loves to talk about. So it's a blessing and a curse all at the same time.
How do you determine, so say a player goes born in Wisconsin, raised in Wisconsin, went to high school, college in Wisconsin, and then goes plays professionally in another city, and that's where they make their name? Are they eligible for the Wisconsin Hall? How does that work?
Yeah, the criteria is generally if you've if you're connected in the state of Wisconsin and have and your career started over 10 years ago, you're up for consideration. So that would include a guy like a JJ Watt or a Tony Romo, but obviously all of these greats like a Brett Favre who came to Wisconsin and had a really successful career there. So I think that ends up certainly widening the pool of potential candidates, and that'll make our job's difficult trying to figure out who should get in, but hopefully also keep the fans really excited and engaged because we'll have some awesome candidates to choose from.
And Bryan, I hope you're not a big fan of chronological order, because I'm going to take you all the way back to your college days now. So we're gonna shift it all the way back to the beginning here. So
Nice.
you graduated from UW La Crosse with a degree in sports management. Did you know what your path would be like right out of college? Did you know that this is what you wanted to do? And then after that, what advice would you give to people graduating now with a degree in sports management or sports business?
Definitely didn't know what the path was. I didn't even want my path to be sports management. I just really wanted to be a high school teacher and coach high school basketball. So I started at Wisconsin Whitewater for 2 years, and they wanted you to stay in their education program for 5 semesters before getting in. And I was paying my way through college, just didn't want to have that extra expense. So my mom actually heard about this sports management program at La Crosse, said, "You love sports, give it a try." I did, graduated. I begged UWM to hire me for free, and they said no the first 2 times. Finally hired me for free. And I ended up meeting Sandy Botham, the women's basketball coach there, who was great. She said, "You should call my brother-in-law. He does something in sports." And that something was representing Brett Favre for his local marketing. So just kind of fortunate. I interviewed with him. At the end, I had a 5-minute interview. He was on the phone for 4.5 minutes. At the end, he said, "I asked you 3 questions. You got 2 out of 3 wrong. I'm desperate as hell. I'll hire you for 30 days for no pay, and I'll probably fire you within 6 months. Do you want the job?" I said, "Can I think about it?" And he said, "No." I'm like, "Okay, I'll take it." But this was 1996, and the Packers were going to their first Super Bowl in 30 years. So it was absolutely fortuitous timing. So no, I didn't have a master plan. But my advice when I'm speaking at colleges or talking with young people that want to get into the business is obviously the educational piece matters and it's helpful, but get as much experience as you can. And if that's working with a sports team or an organization or starting your own podcast and doing great work like you guys are doing, volunteer for a run walk, get involved with different charities, just learn with real world experience, some of these different things that you've learned in the classroom. And hopefully that well-rounded experience should make you an attractive candidate when you're trying to break in. And then always learn as much as you can about selling. Whether you want to be in sales or not, you're always going to have to sell your idea, your concept, your position. So I think that's just a really valuable skill to have that people should really try to keep honing. I still do to this day.
Well, Bryan, we really appreciate your time giving us all that insight, especially that advice for us hits home well. And I know a lot of our viewers as well, it'll hit home, and then all the stories you gave us as well. Don't stick around here. We're just going to wrap up the interview. We'll talk to you a little bit after, if that's all right with you. But thank you so much for coming on our podcast today.
All right. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
And that is our interview with the owner and president of Lammi Sports Management, Bryan Lammi. Big shout out to Bryan for coming on our podcast. Also have to give some shout outs to some other people that made this happen. Ali Abraham, Jason Abraham. They were the ones that set this up with Bryan. And then I've got to thank Brian Urso as well. He was mentioned in the podcast. He's an employee at Lammi Sports Management. He gave us a little bit of a cheat sheet into the details of Lammi and what they're all about. So it was very helpful for us for our research. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think that was amazing stuff. Everything he said was super interesting. And please hit that like and subscribe button below and go check us out on our social media pages, Twitter and Facebook at Odd Sports Topics. We're going to get our LinkedIn going again. We kind of lulled on LinkedIn. We're going to get that going. That's also at Odd Sports Topics. And then the YouTube channel, obviously what you're watching it on right now, at Odd Sports Topics. We're going to try to eventually get this over to SoundCloud and Spotify and a podcast app. We'll see where we can get for that come holiday season. But for now, it's YouTube. You guys are stuck on YouTube. I know it's annoying because you can't get out of it without it stopped playing, which is unfortunate. We're working on it. We're going to try to get it onto the platforms so that you guys can listen to us while you're walking and running. But that is episode 14 already. Appreciate you guys very much. For PJ, Matt, and myself, Can't wait for the next episode. Talk to you guys later and take care.